So ran across this in my news feed, and I was like, "Are you serious? Are you serious? This is supposed to be artwork, right?" Ooh, this is supposed to be artwork. And how is this flying like in Miami, Florida, of all places? I'm gonna leave this in the description box. So this one I want to make this video about, but yo, so check this out. So I was watching a history video on Poland, brighten up there, and it mentioned that one of the kings of Poland. Let me see if I can pull it up. Let me see if I can pull it up. Let's see. Just give me one moment. Here it is.
The German parts of the kingdom, wars against the encroaching Ottomans invading Europe, advancing into...
Let's suppose that you're writing a really important email to a colleague.
Lech, Czech, and Rus, the three legendary patriarchs of the Slavic peoples. While out on a hunting trip, the brothers had a disagreement, as brothers do, on which prey to follow, leading them to split up. Czech, the eldest of the brothers, followed his prey to the Czech clans. Rus, the youngest, went east and became the founder of Russia, and Lech, in the middle, founded Poland. Because who cares about consistency? The tale differs slightly from place to place, but many include that Lech traveled north as he followed a beautiful white eagle. The eagle landed in its nest at sunset and looked very breathtaking against the red sky. Lech took this for an omen and decided that the land would be his new home. The white eagle is still a symbol of Poland, blazoned against the red sky of their flag. Indeed, Poland did begin with Slavic settlements. The Slavs are likely a civilization that emerged as remnants of the early Indo-European peoples who had migrated out of the Caucasus. From their homeland in Central Europe, they began to expand and migrate in response to the weakening of the Roman Empire. You'll remember this from previous episodes as the Great Migration period. The Poles loved their new home, which they shared with Germanic tribes from Scandinavia and the occasional Asian nomadic raiders. The Slavs of Poland were organized into smaller tribes living in and around the Baltic Sea and the Vistula River Delta. They united under Poland's first official leader, Mieszko. Mieszko was a Duke of the Polands. This was a good gig to have since the tribe eventually became the name of the whole country, Poland. Mieszko was a member of the noble house of Piast, whose dynasty would rule Poland for centuries. With his baptism in 966, the country slowly abandoned traditional Slavic paganism and adopted Western Christianity. Mieszko's son Bolesław the Brave expanded the territory south into what he hoped would be a strong regional power, but alas, it was a bit too early for that still. He established the metropolitan see at Gniezno, forming the headquarters of what would become the Catholic Church in Poland. His consolidation of power led him to be crowned Poland's first official king, and then he died, all in the same year, which is great. The Piast dynasty was somewhat up and down, and internal conflicts often plagued the royal court. Till this guy, Casimir the Restorer, restored the monarchy's control, which, come to think of it, is probably why they called him the Restorer. He modernized Poland into a feudalist society, which came with all those cool things like knights and lords and castles. This helped secure the borders, who up until now had changed depending on who was king. The early kingdom, somewhat weaker than its neighbors and strapped for cash, did however hold the Mongol invasion into Europe, having been sacked twice before. Notable of this time was the Polish relationship with the Germans, whose dukes and lords had come to possess large amounts of the West. and the Teutonic Knights, who had carved out a significant state for themselves in Livonia and Prussia, a land inhabited by pagans, frequently raided by crusaders. By the time Piast's rule ended with Casimir the Great, Poland had lost much of its territory to its neighbors, but with a period of peace, the state soon began to prosper and attract Jewish settlement. The counties in this area became a source of contention between the kingdoms of Poland and the Holy Roman Empire, who fought over the local lords for fealty and allegiance. This resulted in these counties being very mixed, with populations of people from both kingdoms. The whole thing was very un-Bohemian, really. The Jews first settled Poland as merchants on popular trade routes. By this century, the Jewish people had settled in great numbers over many kingdoms in Europe and began their long and very sad history. They were expelled by the masses in all the countries they settled, and were often victims of massacres and worse, crusades. Successive expulsions led the population in Poland to swell, which was a comparatively more tolerant society, which became a center of Judaic learning and culture as the centuries continued. However, things weren't always super peachy, and anti-Jewish riots often erupted in Polish towns, and synagogues were frequently burned. King Casimir the Great, dying without an heir, left his kingdom to his nephew Louis, the King of Hungary. Louis left his now 3 kingdoms to his daughters, one of whom died unexpectedly, the other, who was supposed to inherit Poland but inherited Hungary instead, and the last one, Jadwiga, who got Poland. The nobles of Poland welcomed Louis's daughter and crowned her king. Yes, king, not queen. Don't ask. Jadwiga's life would not be unlike a medieval television drama, as she was simultaneously engaged to both the Grand Duke of Lithuania, Jogaila, whose kingdom was huge and powerful, and the Habsburg Duke of Austria, who was inbred and fat. I think she made the right choice. The union of Jadwiga and Vladislav formed the Polish-Lithuanian Union, which was now the largest country in Europe under a single monarchy. The Lithuanians had become a strong military power in the previous century, capturing large amounts of Russian and Mongol land. The now combined countries spread from the Baltic to the Black Sea. The Lithuanians, with their far smaller population, never ventured too far from their castles. Why would you? And preferred to rule Ruthenia from Livonia instead. So by the time of the Union, the much larger Polish population came to dominate the Ruthenia lands, spreading the language and the culture, eventually dwarfing their Livonian allies. The Teutonic Order, that German state on the Baltic, had become somewhat of a bad neighbor, leading raids, crusades, and plundering castles, or otherwise stumbling drunk into Polish-Lithuanian territory, starting fires and whatnot. The union of the two states proved beneficial, handing the Knights a crushing defeat at the Battle of Grunwald in 1410. They also fought numerous wars with the Muscovites, Tatars, and Ottomans. Noteworthy of the Hegelian period was the efficiency of the feudal system and the pseudo-democratic nature of the parliament, who set up sophisticated bureaucracy for king approval, or disapproval if you were unlucky. Within just a few decades, the Teutonic Order had completely lost their state, with the western half being annexed directly into Poland and the rest becoming a fief of the Polish crown. This gave access of Poland to the prosperous Baltic seaports and an explosion in trade. Keep your eye on this, it becomes important later. The Prussian fief would later be inherited by a duke from Brandenburg, a state within the Holy Roman Empire, a trend which would become ever more troublesome as lords within the HRE would increasingly inherit lands outside the imperial borders. The HRE was weird, don't worry about it. Acquiring Danzig or Gdańsk had huge economic benefits, and cities swelled in size in response to the trade boom, like Poznan, Lwów, and the capital Kraków, and most notably Warsaw. Warsaw, or Warszawa in Polish, was up to this point just a small fishing village. Legend has it that a fisherman named Warsz happened upon a mermaid in the Vistula River named Shava.
And once I seen that, I had to stop and look up this Shava. Let's see here. Shava is a symbol of Warsaw, and it's on the coat of arms. This is what I thought was interesting, getting down to here where they read about how Little Mermaid takes her story from here. Where did I read that? Exactly when the mermaid was added to Warsaw's coat of arms is not known, but it was already a place in 1319 with a shape very different from today's. I said 1390s, so I don't know what, this was in the 16, it said here. So I'm not sure what would have been before that, but I just know when I've seen that, it also reminded me of what those things the Dogons were talking about, whatever came out of the ocean from their spaceships, and had the body of fish and the body of a serpent, and they were like women and men and stuff like that. That's what I thought of when I seen that. But where they don't have an age on it. Anyways, there's a piece here where I thought it read that the story of the Little Mermaid is still told through her. The story. Oh, here it is. Yeah, there it is. Sometimes this legend is explained to say that the Little Mermaid. Yeah, see. What I thought was interesting is that he ends up marrying her, and
Who married and founded the town of Varshava. The Poles, like most Europeans, were often embroiled in war.
see, I thought it was interesting. How did she go from being a mermaid to being something he could marry, and founding another nation? So I just, when I thought of that, tons of stuff came to mind, like just the whole, fish DNA and stuff like that being found. I can't find the video I was looking for, but there was one where there was they're explaining blonde hair and stuff like that, and I'll find it some other time. But anyways, I just thought that was something that stood out. I thought it was interesting to look into. What's the possibility of this mermaid being turned into a human, and how did it actually go down? I didn't read too much where it tells you how she goes from being a mermaid to a person. But I do know it was there, and it was in Hungary. Austria. They're the only places that have statues of mermaids, besides what's that one we have in Virginia Beach? Oh, here's some pictures. See, that almost reminds you of those things that what's his name? Yeah, if you watch the Dogon videos and they show you like the Dogon, when they show you what they said walked out of the ocean, they were like part men and women, part fish, and they had like the lower body of the fish. They said that the way that they were walking on looked sort of like the snake in the way it slithers, because it was unconventional, and then the upper body was. It just reminds you of that, like that. Oh, we seen this.